Hi, everybody. Steve Paikin here. I think we have a bit of a special treat for you this week. You know, most of the time on this podcast, we're talking to newsmakers and politicians and tackling some of the tougher issues that are taking place in Canada these days. We're going to get away from that this week. A few weeks ago, I was invited to interview somebody at the Forest City Film Festival in London, Ontario. Why? Well, because I happen to know pretty well, in fact, I've known him my whole life, the guy who was the man of the hour. Let me take you back. Several years ago, there was a program on television. It was the #1 rated drama on North American television. It was called House, and it was starring Hugh Laurie, you know, that fantastic, brilliant British actor. Well, the show was created by a guy from London, Ontario named David Shore, and it just so happens that I've known David Shore my whole life. Our dads were roommates at the University of Western Ontario. So I got invited to come to the Forest City Film Festival in London and do an interview with David on stage. David thought that his friend Hugh Laurie would be participating in the interview as well, and as it turns out, he was in for a big shock. Oh yeah, Hugh participated all right, but not by Zoom, as everybody thought. Hugh showed up and surprised him, and that was pretty cool. Anyway, Hugh Laurie and David Shore, one-on-one? No, two-on-one on the Paikin Podcast, coming right up. The Paikin Podcast One-on-Ones, presented by Beer Canada. Here's the first thing I want to know. You did not know he was coming here, right?
I did not know.
When did you find out?
When he walked, probably about 3 seconds after he walked through the door. Even when he was walking through the door, it didn't process. I'm watching some sort of video, apparently. But
what did you think was going to happen?
I thought it was going to be about me, but it was... I thought he was going to be there, maybe. I didn't know. If he was going to be there, I figured he'd be there via Zoom. And like they said, and here's your, oh my God, here's your friend Hugh Laurie. And I look towards the screen to watch him via Zoom, and then there's a door on the screen. I go, where's Hugh? Why is he near a door? That looks like the door to here. And then the door opens, and then people react, and I look around.
Hugh, could you describe what you saw in David when you saw the look of surprise on his face?
I don't think I've ever surprised David before. In 15, 20 years, I don't think I've ever surprised him or seen him surprised by anybody else. He's a very cool, laconic sort of a fellow. So to see him stutter or stagger in any way is immensely satisfying. And I look forward to doing it again.
You obviously did not have to be here. I think everybody would have understood if you wanted to do this from the other London via Zoom. So why are you here?
You mean the way Freddie Highmore did it? Yes, that would have been the cheaper option, and that did actually occur to me when I was halfway across the Atlantic on Thursday. I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. This just makes no sense at all. But no, I'm so thrilled to be here, and it's so the award is so deserved of my the things I owe David are incalculable. So I owe him everything. It's been the most extraordinary adventure we had together, but the adventure was created by him, and I just got
adventure wouldn't have happened without him.
Now, come on. I actually have cast so many people in my head who would have done House, and I just kept... In fact, it varied from day to day. I would say, Oliver Platt, he would have been great. Yeah, I did that every day.
You would grant that he maybe owes you a little something as well. I understand you feel you owe him, but he kind of owes you too, right?
I'm not sure he thinks that. I don't know.
When he got his star on the Walk of Fame, I showed up, but that was me driving across town. and at that point, I felt we were even. So
Can we do a little...
I owe, yeah.
Okay.
I owe him.
Can we do a little back history here? Because I think this audience would like to know a little bit more about the relationship between you two and how much of it existed before House and then what happened to it after House. So, David, how well did you know Hugh before you cast him?
I knew his work, a little bit of his work. He was the dad in Stuart Little. Probably particularly because I was from Canada. I am from Canada. I had watched...
What?
I'd watched a lot of his comedies, and I thought they were brilliant, and I was a massive fan, and when I was told he was going to audition for this part, I went, oh, I hope I get to meet him, but he's completely wrong for this part. And then he put himself on tape and was a genius. I mean, you can see that audition on YouTube, and it was the part. It was there from... We hadn't even spoken to each other. He hadn't even read the entire script at that point. No. And he had just read those scenes and was just perfect.
Why did you think he would not be right for the part?
Because what was... Because it's a very different character than the character you played in Blackadder, and I sold you short.
Okay. What about the character he played in Spice Girls? Didn't that give you any indication he'd be perfect for this?
I hadn't seen that at that point. Otherwise, it might have been.
How much about David did you know before signing on?
Forgive me, but nothing. Although I will say this, I've said it before, and it remains true, that when I read those, whatever it was, 4 or 5 pages that I got sent, faxed, in fact, that's how long ago it was, I felt not only I got this sort of thrill of thinking, oh, I think I know who this character is, and I think I might have a chance of being able to do this and get it right. But I also thought, and this is even rarer, I thought I know the person who's written this. I feel like I know the way they think and the way their attitude to the world. And I got this sense, and actually, it turned out to be pretty much right. I mean, I could tell. Sometimes, you can tell in a page or two whether you're going to like the whole thing. But in this case, it was getting to know the character and David in the matter of 4 or 5 pages, which was remarkable.
And as you got to know each other, did you hit it off instantly? Did it take a little while? How did that develop?
Oh, there were ups and downs throughout. No,
well, he's Canadian, so he's immensely polite. I think we hit it off pretty quickly, didn't we?
It was. It doesn't always happen this way, but it was the reciprocal situation to what you were saying. I mean, we were fast friends very quickly, and we saw this character the same way. We saw this show the same way. We were rowing in the same direction, and that's not always the case. No. And the things we wanted to do with this show, we both wanted to do, and that's just rare.
It is.
And
I do remember, though, shooting the pilot, there was a scene, we were walking down a corridor, we did a lot of corridor work, and I can remember Bryan Singer saying, oh, something's not quite right about this. What if we put those 2 lines there and that line there? And I remember saying, no, don't do that, because I promise you the guy who's written this has thought this through. And every line and every word is where it needs to be. And this is not jazz. This is more like, this is a kind of chamber music. There's a sort of elegance and particularity about every syllable, and you can't start monkeying with it like that. And I couldn't even explain why David's version was better. I remember Bryan would go, well, why wouldn't that? And I said, I don't know, but I just don't think we should be fiddling, because he's thought it through.
I remember that moment vividly, too. I think that was the very first scene that you were on camera, I think.
Oh, my God.
And I remember, not film, but in the episode, it was the first scene where we introduced the character, but I remember that so vividly because I remember Brian coming to me and saying, I think this scene could work better this way. I'm not sure it's working. We need to move this stuff up. And being an insecure writer, I'm going, oh my God, he's right. What can I do? I've got to say, we're in the middle of our shooting day, and I've got to figure out what to do with the scene. And we were talking about it for a while, and then you came over and went, hey, what's going on? And we said, we're thinking of it. And you went, no. But you had a reason. I don't remember the reasons exactly.
I don't think I did have a reason. I don't think I did. I just sensed that it was the way it was because a very clever person had sensed that. Also, what's kind of interesting, you sort of referring to this, is that you were not as confident then as you became.
Oh.
You grew into the sort of.
I've lost that.
I do have to say he was pretty arrogant as a kid when I knew him, so you know.
Is that true?
No, I think it is true. The longer the show went, the more, frankly, I felt I was able to stand up to directors and network respectfully, but I felt it, maybe because I knew I had you behind me, that I knew the show better than they did, I guess. Yeah.
Who made the decision that House should not have the same accent as Hugh?
I guess I did. Yeah. I mean, it was in some ways. It was written before we cast him, and our director wanted an all-American guy, and there's a story of Hugh's tape coming in, and Brian just coming to, this is our guy, this is the guy, this is the all-American guy we need. And because he really did nail it. And this is my reason for sticking with the American and being an American is somewhat of a dismissal of American audiences, I guess, because I knew the character was odd. I knew the character was different, and I didn't want the audience to be able to go, oh, he's odd, but he's a foreigner. And just kind of dismiss it. I wanted them to feel he was one of them, but just different for his reasons. Yeah.
Did you ever consider, Hugh, going to bat for the English accent as opposed to the American accent?
No, I didn't, but we did try. I think we tried one scene. I can't remember if it was rehearsal or actually in the pilot, and I think I got about 6 words in, and Brian went, nah.
Jesse Spencer was, his character is originally from San Diego, right, and we let him do the Aussie accent.
Now, you joked a little while ago.
Mate, I would come down to the set, and Hugh was in a bit of a mood sometimes. And I would think, oh, what have I done to upset him? What is in the script that he is obviously rightly having a problem with, or is it hopefully it's the director, not me. And then I'd come up to him, and it would invariably be, I can't say. I'm having, when I hear this is Hugh speaking, when I hear myself saying coronary artery.
Impossible.
I don't even think Americans say it right. Yes, coronary artery, federal court order, impossible.
The R's. And so, but that's this, like I would say, doesn't it? It can be just, we can change that. We'll talk to the doctor, we'll come up with a different thing. And go, no, don't you dare. Yeah. He insisted.
I think the only one I did change more than once was New York to Manhattan. I found easier to say. Unfortunately, most of the events took place in Manhattan, but New York is a particularly difficult one. I could never get that to sound right. But as I say, I think a lot of Americans get it wrong too. It's odd.
Now, David, you made a joke a while ago about him not being the only person you considered for the role. Was that a fact?
Yeah, it was hilarious.
No, we read dozens of people, and put offers out to a few people, and none of them were any good. I mean, it really was really good actors, they just didn't get it. And then it was really eye-opening. It was so wonderful. When I saw that tape, that's the All-American, it was amazing. I mean, it was, oh yeah, this is good. Up till that moment, I'd gone, I'm not sure this is any good. And then you read it, but that's part of, I think that is what, I think you and I were responding to the same stuff the same way, and you brought it to the screen. So thank you.
And how much did, there we go. How much did you feel you had to compete with others to get this part?
I was only aware of competing with myself. That sounds glib, but as an actor, have been a disastrous auditioner. I think I've only ever got 2 roles out of 1,000 auditions. This was one of those occasions, actually I can't think of another one, when I was determined that whatever else happened, I would not leave the audition thinking, damn it, why didn't I do? So I actually did work. I arrived about a week before we were supposed to meet, and I paced up and down in a hotel room, going over and over and adjusting it and thinking, that's too fast, too slow, too loud, over and over, because I was just determined. I felt like I was competing with the terrible auditions I'd done myself in the previous years. I went out to try and buy a cane in Los Angeles to rehearse with. Strangely enough, you can't buy a cane in Los Angeles. They are so terrified of death and mortality that they hide all that stuff away. You just can't buy one. So I bought an umbrella instead, which is quite easy to buy, even though it never rains in Los Angeles. It's really strange. They're very strange people. But I did work very hard because I thought I was competing with past failures.
We got a little ad read from Beer Canada. Canada, as we all know, is in an affordability crisis. It's ongoing, and no doubt it affects you. Canadians have the right to know whether their governments are making life more or less affordable. The organization representing Canada's brewers wonder if you knew that in Canada, 46% of the price of beer is government taxation. Yes, Canada imposes higher taxes on beer than any of the other great beer nations. Higher than Germany, Belgium, Mexico, the US, the UK, Brazil, Denmark, and Ireland. At 46%, it's higher than any other country in the G7 as well. And Canada's already very high beer taxes go up annually and automatically. Beer Canada says the powers that be hope you won't notice. They call it sneaky, and they think that automatic is not democratic. And now that you know, you can do something about it. Beer Canada would like you to help stop this practice of automatic beer tax hikes. So go to this website, hereforbeer.ca. That's hereforbeer.ca, and ask yourself, why does the best beer nation in the world have the worst beer taxation? That's a message in the interest of fairness and transparency from our friends at Beer Canada. You know, you may not remember this, but when you and I, David, talked about this role many years ago, we sort of figured out that the character of House was you. And I wonder, Hugh, somebody agreed with me pretty quickly on that.
I agree with someone.
Well, and I wonder if you knew that, Hugh, that you were playing a character that was essentially David Shore.
I suppose it dawned on me pretty quickly, yes, because we just discussing things with David in the run-up to the shooting of the pilot. I just thought, oh yeah, of course. Well, he's going to think that because this is the way he looks at the world, and that is the way House looks at the world, and it's partly the way I look at the world. I'm not saying we're identical. We're not. Oh no. Oh no. But we share a lot of attitudes and ideas about medicine, science, rational thought, society, politics. You know, we do share a lot. But yes, we pretty quickly I realized that he was House. Yeah.
And when you go ahead, David. Sorry.
No medical degree. I'm obviously not as smart as Dr. House, but yes, it was my the things he ranted about were things I believed in very strongly.
Yes, I mean, his curmudgeonly side is definitely you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it was at the beginning of the show. People, what's he based on? And he was based on Sherlock Holmes a bit. And, is there somebody that inspired? And when he was an asshole, when he was just an asshole at the beginning of the show, people just thought he was an asshole, which he was much more than that. But I didn't want to say it was me because he was an asshole. And then it evolved into this sex symbol, and it became even more awkward for me to say it was me. So I brought the asshole, and he turned it into a sex symbol.
When it got to a point, which I presume it did, because this is an artistic endeavor after all, where you two had a fundamental disagreement about an interpretation of a scene or a line or something, give us an example of what it might have been and how you resolved it.
I swear to God, I cannot think of one. I cannot remember.
Either.
We had different... I mean, I would occasionally chip in with an idea, what if it's this instead of that? And David would sometimes, if he was on the set, might say, why don't you try that instead of this? But actually having a sort of collision or any sort of confrontation in 8 years and 177 episodes, I can't think of a single.
Yes, there were discussions that weren't even debates, really. Like, it was just, there were discussions about what are we trying to do here? How can we best do it? But no, there was never a clash, I don't think.
It was all very polite because it turns out I too am Canadian.
So it never got to a point where you two might have had to go into a back room and hash it out and stop speaking for a week, or that never happened? God, how disappointing.
I mean,
okay.
It's much more likely for that to have happened with directors. How many directors do we have? 30, 40, something like that? Or more? I mean, some came back. Yeah. Some came back for a lot.
Yes.
Some were only there once.
Yes.
And then mysteriously disappeared. That happened a few times, but even that wasn't frequent.
What'd you say? No, it was No, there were conflicts on set with various things, but not that. No, yeah. And it was overall, frankly, it was the first thing I'd created. I'd worked in Hollywood. It was the first thing I'd actually created, and I didn't realize until after it was all done exactly how lucky I was. The process, in so many ways, was just, I had more trouble on shows I've done since then, which I would have thought. I thought, I'm coming off House, I'm gonna get to do whatever the hell I want to do now. But turns out, when I hadn't done anything, they would let me do whatever the hell I wanted to do, basically.
So there was, again, you'll forgive me for sort of prying here, but there was never a moment where you said, look, I know the character is a schmuck, but can you dial it back 10% or something like that?
That was one of the things we talked about, is exactly how far you can go. One can go with that, but and we weighed that, and there were situations where it was like.
I mean, forgive me for dissecting your strategy and narrative technique, but what the great thing, the brilliant thing about David's creation is that by giving the central character, who is, as you say, an arsehole, by placing him in a position of pain, constant, unremitting pain, you buy a certain sort of sympathy from the audience. When I say buy, I don't mean it's a cheap thing to, but it does have, undeniably has that effect, that the pain caused him to behave the way he did, and it also engendered a kind of tolerance in the audience that I don't think they would have extended if I'd been some sort of strapping quarterback who could, just carve a sway through the hospital. I think the fact that he was damaged and in pain was absolutely critical to the conception of the character. And I don't mean to say that it was a ploy, but it made perfect sense that he was the way he was because of the condition that he was in.
Well, let me follow up with this because, I mean, there are obviously many reasons why the show works at many levels, but certainly one of them is that you two, I guess, as a combination, are so convincing when it comes to the actual medicine of the show. Right. I mean, I'm sure you've been stopped a million times asking, people come up to you with medical problems and they want you to diagnose it. I'm sure this has happened.
I have saved many, many lives.
Yeah. So, I guess, David, you're a former lawyer. You're not a former doctor, and I doubt you have much medical background as well, Hugh. So how did all of that happen?
We had a lot of help, and it was important to us. Especially when you're on TV in America, and then when you're on TV around the world, and you've got millions and millions of people watching you, you realize and we were doing a thing about rare diseases, but even if it was like 0.1%, it meant we had 1,000 people or whatever the number is watching who suffered from that condition. So we would say we didn't want to give false hope and we didn't want to give false fear. And so it was important to us that we be accurate, and so we had a lot of people helping us.
I mean, I know you could say I was convincing because I was a good actor, which would be true, but it feels like there was just something so much beyond that, a level of research maybe that you did into medicine that allowed you to convey that?
Strangely enough, my father was a doctor, and my son is now a doctor. I'm the ham in the middle of the sandwich. And also, Jesse Spencer comes from a family of doctors. Lisa Edelstein, family of doctors. Medicine was overrepresented in the cast, which is an odd thing. I don't know why it turned out that way, but it did. And I think, if nothing else, although we had no expertise, it did at least give us all a sort of reverence for the process, for the way of thinking, the purely empirical approach to a problem. What is the nature of the problem? How does it present itself? What are the possible solutions? An absolutely methodical, rational, scientific approach, which I think we might not otherwise have had if we weren't connected. I don't know if that's true. We'll never know. But yeah, I think we were of a sort of we were medically sympathetic, even if we weren't medically expert.
A couple of minutes to go here before we see your work, and let me ask a couple of more quick things. It is not unusual for hit television programs to take some time off and then come back on the big screen as a motion picture. Has there been any discussion of that?
Yeah, we're doing it without you. Okay. Probably not. I'm sorry. I like the way it ended. I like what we did. As you said at the end, House leaves the party before anybody asks them to leave the party, and better to leave early than to leave late. Yeah. But I just wouldn't want to do it badly, So
then do it well.
I don't. Okay, we're going to do it. Thank you. You've talked me into it.
And just finally, 177 shows. You guys had a hell of a run. What stays with you?
Friendship.
Well, that's of course.
Yeah. I should have let you give an answer and then do that.
Well, there are all sorts of fragments that pop into my head, just walking down the street, I could suddenly remember a line or a moment that either went well or went disastrously badly. But overall, I think I did just love the world that David had created. It was sort of real, but not. It was a kind of enchanted forest where, magical things happened. People were brought back from the jaws of death most of the time. And it also, I hope, the fact that it gave people an understanding of the fact that the practice of medicine is almost as much art as science, that as brilliant as these people may be, it's not just a question of a blood test, you press a button, you get an answer saying this is what you've got. Some of the stories we told, I think it's right to say, unfolded over decades. We had to compress, or David had to compress them, obviously, but it requires a strange sort of artistry to actually gauge what is really going wrong in someone's body, or someone's brain, even. And I think that was a noble endeavor to actually remind people of our fragility and our good fortune in surviving because of our fragility, all sorts of things that I thought that make still to this day make me proud. I am immensely proud to have been part of it.
David, what stays with you?
That character, yeah, I mean, I'm just so proud and grateful to have been part of it. And it was just such a joy to be able to be at my computer and write a line and not know exactly what he was going to do with it, but know I'm going to enjoy what he does with it. And it freed me up to do whatever I want, which is, again, extraordinarily rare. And even that is the one temptation to do more is every now and again I'll think of something, I'll see something, and I'll wonder what House would have done with that. And, yeah, it's just that character is out there. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It is. So were you too. Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Laurie, David Shore.